Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inside the Mirror. Today I have one of the most amazing men I know, my good friend, Mr. Marc Luce. Marcus, what's happening?
Hello.
Howdy. You're in Colorado, I'm in Texas, but thank God for this newfound amazing technology of Zoom. Zoom, like I said, Zoom has changed, I wouldn't say changed my life because that's a really bold statement, but like it is, it's definitely added a dimension to my life, especially being locked down. You know, like I think a lot of people have been able to use, like we said, use technology to like stay connected. Whereas in the past, if this would have happened, I think depression would have been, maybe I don't know. This is just me pontificating. I think depression would have been at a different place if people were locked in and then they couldn't communicate with the outside world. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
There's
like before cell phones existed.
Yeah, that back in those days.
Early 90s. But you know, they had video phones.
Mm-hmm.
Those video phones came out like mid 90s or whatever.
Isn't it weird?
I remember those being a very big deal. Like video conference phones where you could like bring in tons of people with your thing. And like, this is just an app version of that. So much.
That's true. That's a good point. That was like it's
not even new. It's just smaller and easier to use.
And put into like the functionality of like a mobile cell phone.
Yeah, but everyday life. Yeah,
sure. Same idea. Like
of those real common people.
The peasants.
The peasants.
But don't you agree? Like, I know we don't use Zoom a ton, but it's been cool for like you and me and Kat to be able to at least like check in and like see each other's faces in the middle of the craziest time a whole generation has ever seen. Like, at least you could see the people you love. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. If they're tech savvy, you know, like I don't think a lot of people are like over 45 using this stuff. You know, are they? Like,
right?
Yeah, I could imagine hitting up like
in a business context, maybe like, more than like.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not utilizing that app correctly. maybe I should be using it more often.
Well, we're using it right now, so I think that's a win. But there's different people and lifestyles that will need it more than others. You know, like my uncle who's working remotely, and he is he's a bigwig in business. He's got to be on calls all day. Like he's only on Zoom. You know, that's like all he does now is Zoom calls. Which like 6 months ago, like, hey, I got a Zoom call. People are like, well, what does that mean? Like, you're gonna have a really fast phone call?
Oh yeah, now it's like business standard.
Like a Zoom call. What is a Zoom? Zoom? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, they had like Skype business and stuff like that. They have ways of communicating constantly. Yeah. Like the company I work for uses Skype business, and it's on all the time. Everybody as long as you are online, that thing is up and running and able to communicate with anyone in the business.
Really?
So, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, that's how like people are staying at home and doing this well, but like most companies were using that to some degree. Internal communication, emails. So I mean,
do you use email personally? Like, do you personally use email?
I have to.
Do you?
All the time.
For work?
For work, absolutely. I probably send 10 emails a day.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm working 11 and a half hour days, you know, so it could be in 1 hour, I used up those 10 things going, okay, I let this person know, okay, this is their response to it. They're online talking to me. Like, emails they're necessary.
So it's still happening.
You know, like, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
They gave me my own
email account. Like,
really?
It's not just like my Gmail. It's like a business email account for sure.
Because I'm to this point where I'm like, when is email going to die? Like, when is it? I think email is going to be you don't think so? No. It's just like Facebook, like Instagram and TikTok will come, but Facebook's still around.
I think there may be other things easier to use, like Skype business.
Yeah. But people are comfortable with what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, but emails have been entrenched in our society for a while. You know, BlackBerries. Yeah. That's when people started using that shit to communicate, was business versions of that stuff. Like, as soon as computers were like, we can send emails real fast, like, fuck yeah. Like, it's such a basic function of technology now that it's like, it's so engraved. It's so easy too. To have an email system working is like, oh, let's just pay somebody a couple $100s to set this up.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have it? You know, like it becomes the most easiest free version of everything, you know? So
because everybody isn't, Yeah, and in a business context, like everybody can't just like be texting each other back and forth, and like it gets convoluted, and then
Well, and companies want records of employee interaction, so everything you're typing through these emails are recorded elsewhere.
Right, and stored in a server somewhere.
Sure.
Like
so it's like it's almost like a company covering their own ass. Look, we have electronic data for everything that's happened.
Yeah.
If they've communicated in a way that we offer them, like, so it's so easy and free, and it covers their bases so hard. Like, email's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and that's
if you're
a good
not
point.
using it, you're just not in the right industry, like, to be using it. Like, that's all.
Yeah, that's right. And as we even talk about
weird
email,
coming from someone who does a podcast not using email. Like, really?
And well, I do use email. It's not that I don't use email. It's just like my least preferred method of communication. Like
Sure. Oh yeah,
I'd use.
It's
we
not
were
as fun.
using
I want to post
Snapchat.
up a picture of something that's interesting next to my email, you know, so I'll use Instagram, you know, like
right.
things like that.
Like it's for me, email is simply just if it's a necessary communication that has to be used through an email. Like if email is a necessary way to communicate whatever that is, I'll use it. Like Zoom, I had to send you an email to invite you to the Zoom meeting, right? There's no other option.
There you go. Most base, it's so easy.
Yeah.
To use it.
So I guess as you say that, I do realize like email is
your Google account
pretty
is
important.
Connected to an email account that you like. And honestly, I use my Google sign in for everything. Like,
I do too. Like even to post videos on YouTube, I have to sign in to my email to sign into my YouTube to post a video.
Your email is like your virtual license, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I didn't even think about that.
It's not going anywhere, man. Like, and you can create one at any time and use it from there, you know?
Here's a question. Yeah. Where are phones headed? Like, just, we don't know for sure. We're not tech geniuses. Where do you think? How about that? Where do you hope phones
Where do I hope they're headed?
Because we've had talks
they're headed
about
as like a tattoo you would have right here.
We talked about
you know, like if you could like, boop, and it would be like a living tattoo, you know, like, you know, it doesn't have to be super fancy, but allow me to browse information, read text, things like that. The ink would change and move, like smart ink, whatever. It would just be like some form of like lightweight cloth they embed in the skin, or like something like an ink they inject that is controlled with nanites. I don't know. But I hope that that's where we're heading, just so that like at all points and all times, you're there.
You're integrated with it.
Information. I mean, then you have like, okay, are hackers able to hack into your arm and steal your identity? I mean, there's a lot of concerns for shit like that. Like, it's almost like walking around with a chip connected to you. But like, maybe I'm too naive to say this, but like, I'm not doing anything shady. Like, you know, like, why am I worried about this? You know.
And that is the argument with all tech.
I use this. You know, the idea that you can set this down and go off the grid is very nice. You know, but I mean, technology is heading in a direction where it's like, what if, to eliminate the usage of paper, you download that thing, just like a Kindle's smart ink screen, whatever, in your arm.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you would get, all your emails, every mail you'd ever need, phone calls, transactions, bank account, everything you would ever need, created right there in your own personal computer that you're given at like, you know, we could do it early. You could give it to them at like age 8. And then all of a sudden you've got all their schoolwork, all their information for anything they're going, anywhere you can track your kids, you know, if they're at school, you know what's going on. It's like, yes, there are concerns for hackers, but like at the same time, if there's a rise in hackers, wouldn't we have a rise in hacking detectives, you know, like,
and security protocols.
Security protocols and things like that. Like, people are terrified because they're like, I want to be off the grid. Okay, cool. Then just don't participate. Don't get it.
I agree. I think this.
But I think technology, that's where I think the best technology is heading, is like organic
human integration
technology, for sure. Like a bionic man, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever.
And people think that sounds crazy, but that's exactly where we're headed.
Monitor my health rate. So why is my heart rate up like this? What's happening? Like, you know, they did a show called Black Mirror where they're recording everything behind in like a lens in their eye or in their mind, whatever, so they can see whatever they're recording. People are like, okay, well, that's the terrible consequences of this thing. And it's like, okay, but like, don't do shady shit. You know, like, don't, you know.
I think people want to say that they don't want to be on the grid, or they're scared of hackers and privacy. But if you actually watch people's behavior, people are happy to give up their privacy. Everybody on Facebook and Instagram has given up all their data, all their information. If you're on TikTok, you're giving it to the Chinese. Like, people think that they're like, I'm not giving out my information. But you don't know that every time you download an app, you're giving out all your privacy. Like, you're giving up all privacy. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we've already given up all privacy.
When I downloaded the Facebook app, I'm not on Facebook. You can probably find an old account there. I'm not on there. I haven't been on there in years. If I logged in, it was like, oh, I wonder if I can find a picture that I used to have up there. You know, like, I'm not on Facebook. Because when I went to go download the app, it was like, oh, give you rights to collect data on my phone calls and all that. I'm like, well, fuck no. That's like, I'm giving you the right to record everything I'm ever saying. Like, no. But I know that already exists with the phone company.
Exactly.
You're a third outside party that's like not giving me anything, you know, like at least they have my service, you know, like.
But yeah, it's almost inescapable. Like, you can only fight it for so long. Like, we're here. Like,
if you want to live a normal life, yes.
Yeah, you would have. You have to.
If you want to be included in life going on around you, yes. Do I think terrible things can happen with it? Sure.
100%.
Of course.
But can great things come from it? Yeah. Like, people are so connected right now.
Maybe. How many
information is spread so fast
through. Could be stopped if every single one of them had a fucking tracking device, you know, like,
there you go.
You know, like maybe we just find ways to protect that information. That's all. You know, there you go. Our census, real-time data, we could send things out and communicate as a whole so much faster.
Instant.
If it just boom on there, you know.
As you were talking about the eye thing from Black Mirror, I try to stay up on tech because I think I want to know what's happening in the world. For sure. And like a lot of the guys I follow that are in the top of the tech industry say it's only a matter of time before we have a contact lens that has all the same functionality as a cell phone or mobile device. A contact lens to where you would pull up a digital screen that would come out to here, just like you see in Minority Report or movies.
Because with the mirrors in your eyes already, the way that it works, that information can be so small and all that. The only thing you'd have to worry about is like it overheating and melting your eye. I don't know. I don't know what the dangers of that are.
But the time they roll that out, I'm sure they would make
that would be the easiest way to do that for sure. That makes sense to me.
Just put in a contact lens.
Sit there and go like this, like
yeah,
I'm in. Like, it's recording my motion. Post something up in front of me that only I can see. It has, obviously, because it is my eye, it has a camera that can see what I'm pointing at. So it makes the judgments of this word, this, you know, like you just. I'm so in for that.
And it's coming. Like, they're saying that it's already in the works. Like, this is not anymore like a futuristic, maybe someday this will happen. They're like, no, it's in development. It's just not to market yet, but it's in development. That tech is in development. Exactly. The technology they're working on,
general public.
We know this. The stuff that is in the general public, we're like 5-6 years behind what's really happening. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I'm sure.
They got stuff that they're going to roll out soon that they've been working on for years and years, right? It's just not able to be facilitated to the masses.
For whatever reason, it could be funding, it could be the parts to make it are too expensive for the cost, you know, like cost effectiveness could be a large reason for technology setbacks. You know, let's wait till we find a cheaper, easier solution. You know, like the first model isn't always the right one, you know. If that's how it worked, we wouldn't have so many new phones all the goddamn time.
And like you said, like maybe it's just not safe yet. Like that maybe they don't have it to a place where it doesn't burn your eye. You know,
exactly. Like, you know, like real life problems. Maybe you start having hallucinations. You know, like who knows?
For
like,
sure. They have to definitely.
So cool though to like be able to like pull up anything you ever looked at. I could be like, I once read a book, pull up that information, and it could be projected. You know, because it's recording as you go.
And it'll be right there, right in front of your face, and you can see everything. You can pull up your Facebook right here, or your Instagram, or your text, or anything. Right there.
Any book you ever read, any symptoms you ever heard about. Like if you were a doctor, imagine that. Oh, what's this information? Just boom, information's there. Okay.
Boom.
You go in the cut, and it's got parameters that go, oh, wait a minute, that's not what you're supposed to do. You know, who knows? The technology's limitless. I'm so down for that.
And it's coming. Like there's people that, I mean, there's so many conversations happening right now about like humans merging with technology, like physically, like you said, cyborg type thing. That stuff's coming. We already know it's coming. It's already going to happen. They're talking about being able to replace
where the
hearts
most advanced
at some point.
technology for that is probably in like prosthetic labs.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was headed.
Look for people with missing arms and go find yourself a cool robot arm. You know, like that's where that technology is happening. That's where it's going to be the largest breakthrough. Once people start accepting a technological substitute, like for like a hand, oh, my hand got cut off, let me build you a little robot arm. That's going to change society so much. People are going to be like, well, cool, then let's put a phone in the hand. You know, like, oh, if we ever replace that arm, you know, anything goes wrong, we're fine. You know, people aren't opposed to it. Like,
and then think when you get even deeper, when they're able to replace your heart or your lung or your liver with a new piece of technology that has the same functions of that. It didn't occur organically, but it's now man-made. And at some point, in theory, people would be able to live forever because you could replace any parts just like a car, right? Eventually probably burn out and die at some point, maybe. But in theory, if you were able to create any human organ through technology and replace it, anytime something breaks down, you just replace it with a new part, you know? So in theory, people could live forever.
Yeah, in theory, we could all be like Darth Vader.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think that's good?
I don't know.
Should people be able to live forever at the hands of humans, helping other humans become immortal?
I think at a certain point, I mean, that's so far in the future. Initially, I would fear a scenario like that movie Repo Men, the remake of Repo Men.
I'm familiar with it.
Where they like replace body parts that are like rented out, so people are in life-crippling debt their entire lives, and if they ever stop payments, they can get that organ harvested from them.
That's a sketchy scenario.
That would be the downside, is some kind of medical setup where people are indebted their entire lives just to be able to have a functioning kidney. You know, like it.
And there becomes
it's like, it's not like you could easily, like, you would need a special kind of doctor to even install that in your body, you know, like there could be like a monopoly on this kind of stuff.
There's so many different infrastructures that would have to be built.
For sure. It would be a whole new field of like robotics and organic mixing that, like, as a taxpayer going, no way, like, it's a cool idea, but like owning a car signs me up for an insane amount of maintenance and shit like that going on. Like, just think about what it takes to like keep your car up and running for years at a time. Now imagine that's your kidney, and imagine only a special doctor can do it and not any mom and pop auto shop down the street. You know, like, you could spend your entire life just indebted to these, you know, you'd have slave situations where it's like, oh, we own this person now because we take away their functioning heart.
Right. We gave him $100,000 heart and they only paid $5,000.
We hold for 75 years, we hold the lease on patent on this technology. So we're going to hold people in servitude. Like, there's a real dark side that this could go.
Yeah.
That being said, how cool would that be to be able to replace it? You know?
Right. And then there becomes a huge inequality
as the
gap
guy who would end up paying for that horrible scenario just to barely live, I would be the guy who, like, oh, I lost my arm. And they ended up replacing this whole part of my rib cage, and now I have to go in for maintenance every Tuesday. You know, it's like $6,000 a year. Like, you know, like, I could just see that could just be like a horrible, horrible situation.
And then there's the inequality gap of the people that are able to do it financially and the people that aren't. So then you got people that have been living for 300 years, and then you got guys that die at 60 because they can't get a new lung.
Yeah, you know,
and
like,
that's a crazy, even the age differential of people that can almost immortalize themselves versus people that can't afford it and they just have to die young. Then you got people that are 300 and people that are 30.
I think at a certain point the mind would break down.
You think?
Even if you replaced every part of it, simply sanity-wise,
the untangible
of
things.
Brain matter. I don't know what the lifespan of brain matter is when it's removed. You know, how can a brain matter function without proper blood supply? Like, if you could take my brain out and put me in like a robot and have me control it, I mean, maybe theoretically 1,000 years.
There's talk
I
about
don't
that
know.
too.
Like,
There's talk
I mean,
about
like, at what point
removing
do
the
you just
consciousness of a
start
human.
breaking down? You know, like at what
Yeah.
point? Like maybe it's only 30 years after your death.
Mhm.
You know, like maybe after 30 years after your death, like there's just no saving your brain. You know, like unless we like found a way to transfer that onto like electrical
Into
signals,
technology.
into like technology
Right.
and stuff.
Because
like
Elon's a big proponent of that. Elon totally believes that at
it's a
some
cool
point we
idea.
will be
It's a
able
cool
to
idea.
move consciousness, like you said, into a computer to where my body can pass away. That's fine. But my consciousness will be put into a computer or, like you said, a robot, and then I will still live on. Because
Well,
my
the problem,
consciousness is still there.
I imagine the problem with that is like,
Mm-hmm.
at what point, if you're copying from a mental state onto a physical state, that's like, if you're copying your conscious thought onto technology, how is it computing your thought into ones and zeros? And what if there's like repeating errors? What if I have dementia and there's only a small part, but then you all of a sudden you copy it over again and again and again and again? At which point do I become Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey, or I lose my fucking mind because I can't cope with reality anymore based on my input and when built up errors in my code? You know, like at what point do I become a virus? Am I even human? Because like the twisted mentality of being detached from connecting
A
with the world
physical
around
body.
you. Yeah,
That's a lot.
there's a whole lot of ethic issues going on there
I
that are like,
agree.
I don't have the way. You know, maybe I've read too many books. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
You would. There's a problem ethically, you know, going
Sure.
on there that it's like I don't even know. Like at which point, I mean, who thought that we could get to that point where you could shatter people's minds and insanity just from like, oh, I'm gonna replace this hand with robotic arm, you know? So it's like, I don't know. There are good and good sides.
And who decides who's the ethics board that decides that? Is it the U.S. government? Like, well, that's a bad idea. We've already seen that.
No.
U.S. government and
who
and
decides
their
that?
ethics. Yeah,
No.
right.
Other
Who
way.
would government?
Protests. We'd have people rioting. We'd have a lot of action of like violence and rebellion. I think that if there is a point where I think at a certain point you'd be like, well, you're property. You're no longer human. You're just like a consciousness and property. It'd be like a RoboCop scenario, I guess. Like, I think there'd be a point where you'd lose your human rights for sure, because you're no longer purely human. And then it's like, oh well, that sucks.
Right. Do you have freedom of speech if your consciousness is in a machine? Like, well, I don't think so.
I guess your next best thing would be like, oh, once I've been downloaded onto a chip, here's a person over here that I can wipe out their mind and put my consciousness into their body. Like maybe that would be the way to go. But there's ethic problems there too.
Still,
you know?
right? Everyone still.
I don't know.
But it's like technology is going to play out how it plays out. Like it's going to do its thing.
For sure. Especially
humans
with mass communication going on right now. With emails, basically with emails, this information is out there. You know, like once somebody creates and learns this, it's only a matter of time before it leaks out. You know, like even to the point where it's like governments are like we'll hold this quiet for like 50 years, and then we're going to tell everybody about it. You know, like Area 51 and all that stuff, where they're like, okay, now we can tell you it's been long enough. You know, like eventually this technology will be out there. Maybe not in our lifetime.
At some point,
like as long as information can freely be transmitted, like this stuff is coming for sure.
Right.
Because people are going to build on older ideas.
Yeah.
For sure, it's coming.
I agree. Like you and me have had talks previously just about like the future of technology, and like you and me talked before about microchips at a young age. I remember this a couple years ago. You and me had a long conversation about microchips at a young age, the ethics of that, but also like the practicality of something like that. You know, because it's highly practical, you know, to use technology to condense everything, because we have so many different moving parts to condense it all. Just like you said, whether it's a microchip or the phone in the arm, like that just makes sense as far as like where technology is headed, what direction it's going, as we integrate with it more and more. We're already integrated with it in a way. We're already cyborgs in a way, because we have the thing in our pocket that our lives have to surround. Our lives are based on this mobile device that we all carry around.
Yeah, but that's like, until it's embedded in my body, I think it's still a tool. You know, like
no,
it's not
yeah, because you can
mandatory.
put it down.
Exactly,
But there
because you
is
can put it down and walk away. You know, like it's not. It's a
exactly,
tool. It's still a tool.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
just the most used tool.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then as far as like do you give the kids a choice, or does it become a just a cultural societal thing where that's what we do? We vaccinate kids right now, or it becomes that we also give them a microchip with all the with the data that they'll travel through life with, you know? Like, do we give them a
I think
choice? Do the
here's what I
parents
think.
make the choice? Does it
I
become
think that there will be a point where it is not a choice.
Mhm.
It'll be a social norm
Mhm.
at a very young age, because if you can put parental locks in everything your child can access, when to use a TV,
Mhm.
your child has to swipe their arm to gain access to watch TV. You know,
Mhm.
like the little chip saying, "Oh, here I am. This is who I'm doing. I'm doing that." And
Mhm.
I can make sure that he never sees anything pornographic, anything rated
Mhm.
R, anything NRX because of violence, like no faces of death nonsense. If I can put that control in a child, and make sure that if he's going places, he's not being approached by the wrong people, because we know who's around him. You know, here are these people. As soon as you can do that for everything in our lives, like, oh, we no longer have keys. The kid comes up, puts their arm to the door opens because they know who it is. You know, like that kind of control, that kind of scenario. Um, you know, like, okay, so right now my sister bought my nephew a phone. He's 6 years old. It's like, oh, does he need a phone? And we're like, and my sister says, well, like, it's kind of like a jitterbug. He can only contact the people we put into the phone.
Mhm.
You know, nobody outside can interact with him. He can't text people from random numbers and stuff. His phone doesn't have access to that.
Mhm.
So he can only interact with the people we allow him to interact with. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, at that point, then maybe it's good he has a phone. You
Mhm.
know, maybe it's good that he learns how to be able to contact us and tell us what he needs. Um, that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, we can limit his ability to get online, to interact with that kind of stuff, and we're giving him the device to do it. Like, okay, yeah, I'm down for that.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think once that argument's made just for like all of people, like when it's like, okay, you can no longer lose your ID, you can no longer be mistaken for anybody, you can no
Mhm.
longer um hide. Yes, there is a shady part of life, and yes, there is like a desire for more, but maybe like maybe you just need to get back into printed paper, like
Right.
get over
Uh,
it.
Yeah.
um
Here's a question though. Are When we get to that point, because we will at some point, where whether it's a microchip or whatever that we're using, do you have the option to go backwards and say, I'm 25 now and I'm not down with this anymore. I want to go live in the jungle and not be integrated with technology. Do you have that choice anymore? Can you dig it out
sure,
your arm, or is that
sure.
illegal, or you think
I don't
so?
know. I'm sure it would. You
Hmm.
want to disappear from the world? Yes, there are ways
Hmm.
to do that.
Yeah.
You want to just run magnets over it and destroy its ability to communicate with anything? Like, yeah, you can
Hmm.
totally disappear off the grid. You can do that
Hmm.
now.
Sure.
Are you personally capable of going and living a life in the mountains? No, I don't think you have enough literature.
Uh-huh.
You need to read how to survive. You need to read
Right.
about the area, find out information. Do you want to go off grid? Sure, you
Right.
can go off grid.
There's
We're not
so
telling you
much
never to run
involved in
away.
that.
We're saying, here's society. If you want to participate,
This is what we're doing.
yeah. You have
Yeah.
such a huge problem with that. Go be in a society that doesn't participate. I'm sure there'll be
Right.
towns of like no technology towns,
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's like, oh, the Amish country, like
Yeah.
people
That's a good
like they
point.
did in the early 20th century. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, sure, that's fine. You want to go live those lives, you can do that, as long as we're not like, oh, those people are alien, we're going to destroy their livelihoods and beat up as long as it's not
Right.
filled with violence, that's, again,
Yeah.
your choice.
Right. I
I
disagree.
still think it'll be cool as shit if I could, from my own body heat, just from eating food and living, maybe it generates enough electricity to charge that thing.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Huh.
Like maybe the health, the functioning of my body, biometric electricity in some way. Maybe you just exercising a certain amount of time a day. If all that information can be easily accessed right there, I'm down. Like, let's do it.
And what about if this thing can electrically like send pulses to parts of your body, almost as if doctors sometimes send electronic pulses to see what muscles spasm. to the point where you wouldn't need to see a doctor as frequently, because this tech could almost help you self-diagnose a lot of things.
For sure.
And
they have that technology now. You have a diabetic meter. You can go to Walmart and buy some of this medical stuff. Why can't it just already be installed and doing that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think
if you have a heart attack, this thing is obviously linked up to you. It realizes that, and it can shock your heart back into beating on its own without having medics come.
Well, something and you know, like I've also thought about the idea of like electroshock therapy to like strengthen muscles.
It's a real thing.
What if this thing could like send electrical pulses through your body like while you sleep, and you'd be in better shape by the time you wake up.
And you just get jacked.
Like, just it would help you like
it just shake weights you all night.
Throughout the day, you could just be like, okay, turn on my workout mode. I'm going to lose 5 pounds.
Yeah, go ahead and hit the ab shocker.
For sure, like a dog that freaks out and barks a lot. You know how they're always like ripped and just full of muscles.
Yeah.
So all the time, like it would just be like the little thing that controls.
So you're just getting juiced all night while you're sleeping.
For sure. That's why. I mean, sure, that's probably horrible for you and not something you should or can do. But if they can,
I mean, you're still down with it.
I could get a 6-pack by the age of 12 and keep it my entire life
by doing nothing.
You know, like.
But then do we start propagating laziness? Because you don't have to work out, you just get shock abs because they just, do we become lazier because of it? I mean, I think we've seen in history, technology tends to make us lazier in certain areas.
No, here's what I think would happen. If I could sleep for 8 hours and my muscles would be tense and I would, like it would strengthen my muscles and make it so my body like stays in shape, I think I would have the physical fitness to constantly go out and do everything.
There's a good point.
If my muscles are properly tired from this strenuous activity, I could fall asleep regularly when I wanted to.
You could turn the function off.
For sure. I think that a lot of what stops people from being active and a lot of what breeds laziness is actually just like a discomfort with exercise, an unwillingness to get their body moving, which could be chemical imbalances. It could be what they're eating. Maybe they're feeling a little shitty. Maybe they're just enjoying that comfort too much because other parts of their body hurt. You have something wrong with your foot and you walk funny for 5 years, all of a sudden your spine's jacked up and you have to have like medical surgery to fix it. If people had physical fitness to where they felt good enough to go do things, I think more people would go out and do things. I think it would be easier for everybody to just go enjoy a mile run, instead of like the slow buildup of getting in shape. I think that if it could be a way of forcing our bodies to stay in shape without us needing to dedicate the time to it, we might see an increase in like productivity across the board.
Do you think you'd lose something though? Because there's something to be said for like the discomfort and pain of exercise and the effort that it takes. There's something to be said for like the grit that it requires. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And maybe you just choose not to use that function.
Then you get gritty and keep it going. And what about if you're shocking your abs all night long? Do you actually get a proper rest? Right? Is your blood flowing to the right parts if you're shooting it?
Could last for 10 minutes with a half-hour break, then another 10 minutes with a half-hour break, another 10 minutes, half-hour break. Maybe I'd be fine. I don't know.
And that would, right? That would all have to be figured out in labs and stuff, right? And that's the whole thing.
I don't know the science of that.
We're going back and forth about it, but I think let's change something because I do want to make sure that we at least get into your brain a little bit more as far as you're an author. And I didn't say that yet, but you're an author. You're an author. You are actively authoring.
I haven't published anything.
But you're actively authoring. You're an active writer of a book.
I see what you're saying. I don't think that's the right word.
Okay, authoring you're not okay. You're actively writing a book.
I'm just writing a story. Yeah, it's my hobby right now. I'm gonna call it a passion project.
Okay, that's fair. But me and you have talked about this a lot, and I've read the chapters of your book, except for the past 2. I will get to it.
You're fine.
But we were even talking about this earlier, like where does that begin, as far as like, where does the passion come from to want to write that? And then also, like, what is the ultimate goal of it, right? Like, where do you see it? What's your vision for it? Because everybody has a vision. You didn't start it because you have no vision, right? Like, there's some vision for it. So those are my two questions. Where did the passion come from? And then what's the vision, the long-term vision for it?
Honestly, I just like, I don't know, growing up, I just loved a good story.
Mm-hmm.
I liked video games, large immersive worlds where they have, Skyrim has tons of storylines, tons of stuff going on. Books you would read that are like 9-10 books long. They're like giant, I don't know what they're called at that point, just sagas.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like was so disappointed when a story ended. Like I was always like, oh God, now that book's over. Now I have to go find something else I care about enough to keep reading, like, and like as a kid, like I read a lot. Like I would say I know it was around the time the third Harry Potter was published as a book.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember getting the first 3.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and my father actually thought I was like that I couldn't read, like maybe I was dyslexic or something, because I just could not focus on reading anything. And they took me to like a reading like testing facility to see like at what grade I'm reading at, what comprehension, and you had to like stare into this thing and it tracked your eye movements to see if you're actually reading, and then you had to like talk and write about what you read, and it was just to see if I was comprehending stuff. And I was like, I don't know, whatever, around that time the third Harry Potter came out, like they got me tested. It was like, no, he's reading at like an 11th grade level. Like he understands what he's reading. This is all just boring material to him. Like he doesn't care about it. So it was like, okay. So they started like taking me to the library. We started finding books, things I could, throw my imagination into, focus on. Other than that, there was a time where I was just like, I just read through like entire fantasy sections in like the local library and shit, like everything I could get my hands on. And then like after a while you kind of feel like you've read everything, like you're like, okay, I'm tired of reading. It's hours of time of investment, again, you're like, okay, I just like spent like 9 hours in the last 3 days reading. Like that's so much time to waste.
Wow.
I don't know, so I just always liked stories, so I was just always reading stories. And after a while, like a few years ago, I was just kind of like,
create my own.
I'm not reading any story I find interesting, so maybe I should just try and write a story I found interesting. And then I grabbed these like little books and tried to hand write out like a story, but like handwriting sucks. Like it's so time. You thought you were investing a lot of time just reading. No, like try writing. Like it's like so exhaustingly long. I'm like, I can't imagine not having technology and trying to write a story. Like these stories would not be written if I had the free hand write out every draft and that kind of stuff. Like I wouldn't have followed this. But like typing is so easy now. Using your resources is so convenient that it's just like, okay, I was thinking about a character. Wouldn't it be cool if you did this? And then like you just like, I started using Google Docs on my phone. Like I'd have an idea where I just put a sentence into a document, whatever, threw a name on it, forgot about it. A week later, had another idea, opened it, threw it in there. And it was just like a slow accumulation of like, of topics that I had been thinking about. And like I have like a whole topic dedicated to like, how would an empire run? Like a fantasy empire. I was like, okay, well, you would need like a financing accountant department. And I'm sitting here like trying to figure out like how you could make an empire run. And I'm like, where am I going with this? Like, why do I even give a shit about this at all? Like, I've probably invested 10 hours of my life just thinking about how the financial departments of an empire would run and how they would like move like things from here to there. And I'm like, okay, this is useless information, but like, it's just a document sitting there at some point, I might get back to, or I might find a way to integrate into another story, like who knows? And it just started like that. Like I wrote little short stories, like embarrassing enough, like while I'm taking a poop or something, just sitting on the toilet, you're like, I had an idea, so I'll just sit there and type out a paragraph of something, like. And after a while, you just accumulate so much. You're like, okay, I can now organize this into a story. I can now, and that's kind of how it started. And it's been like 5 years now where I've just been constantly putting information that I'm thinking about, or like story details, characters, thoughts. Like I have folders in here dedicated for like, oh, that's a cool sentence. That's a cool sentence. I like this from a song. You know, you just start throwing that information together. And now I would say I'm well on my way to having a book. It's been a solid year now.
That's a super cool creative process, I think, of just like almost no structure, just totally
none
free.
at all. This has been a thought in the back of my head for the last 9 years, you know, like just a slow accumulation of being like, all right, well, I like this from stories, and I like that they said this was a cool scenario I read. Like, I started watching anime because they have some of the better crazy storylines that are like, you know, like there's one anime called One Piece that's like 1,000 episodes long. Each one is 25-30 minutes long. It's like, oh shit, that's like, talk about an ongoing story, you know, like, and it's like, okay, I see how they structured this. I see how they could make that into like a book, like, and you just get these like small, you know, like I said, it's just small pieces. Like, if I could focus for 1 hour a day, just sit down and type for 1 hour a day, I'd probably have a book in like 4 or 5 weeks. But like, that's not real time in my life, you know, like, especially when I'm not like, this needs a deadline. Like, no, I've just kind of just been like freeballing this for a while now.
So I personally think that like in the long run, I think you will create something incredible because you're not worried about timing. You're not worried about, oh, I got to get this done by now. And then you add a level of stress that's not productive.
It'll either be incredible, or it'll be the craziest nonsense any of you guys have ever read. It'll be one or the other end of the spectrum.
Which both are a win like, in my mind.
I don't know. It could be Tolkien, or it could be American Pie. You know, like, we'll see. It's just total opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, like.
But I think both are incredible. Both are incredible. But do you have a long-term, like, if you were to say, hey, if this goes perfectly and just everything works out the way in my mind, what does that look like? You know, in 10 years or whenever? What's the long-term vision?
I do have a desire to hold an actual physical book that I wrote. You know, I do at some point want to be able to be like, oh, this is a book I wrote. I have a few copies laying around, you know, they're printed. I can, you know, maybe my family will care about them in years, you know, grandchildren, whatever. I could donate them to the local library, whatever. I don't see any real monetary gain unless it's like, oh, I'm on my 3rd book and now I'm gaining money. Like, I plan on throwing it up on like Kindle, you know, Amazon Kindle, whatever, you know, maybe 99 cents a piece, whatever, if it's even worth that, who knows? You know, I may get some money, I may get nothing. I think that for now, it's just, I enjoy the process. You know, I enjoy being able to sit down and write out these ideas. It's been fun, you know, like I've got a lot of different short stories going that are like great. And then I can't think about a damn thing about them at all for 2-3 weeks, but I just kind of hopped over and started writing something else from somewhere else, you know, like hopefully I'll get back to them at some point. Maybe they'll become character backgrounds for some character years from now. I don't know. We'll see. I enjoy investing my time into it. So it's more of like a hobby that hopefully I'll have like physical rewards from someday. But as a creative process, I've really enjoyed it.
I think that's the most important thing in anything that people do if they're trying to achieve something. And even if they're not, like in life, I think we forget, like, loving the process is the win. That's the success. Whether it's like trying to run a marathon or write a book or build a business, like if you don't love the process and you just want to get to the end, you know, then you won't experience it to the fullness of the people that actually enjoy the process, because that's where all the fun is in the process. Like someday when you publish the book, and even if it brings you $1 million, that you will never have the same feelings as when you were creating it and going through the process. You just,
I think I would be okay with $1 million.
Of course, but it can't. It's not a replacement for the years of just enjoyment that you had in the process.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like,
it's a reward. It's like the cherry on top. You know.
You know, like I'm working my job. I'm putting away my money. I've got my 401k going. You know, like you know, I own this house, we're paying it down, you know, like we're doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But it's just like all these things are like, yeah, like I'll have something at the end, like, yeah. But it's like, at what point was I like, okay, well, I enjoyed doing this long term, you know, like as a long term hobby. this has been pretty nice, you know, like,
Mhm.
it's a nice creative outlet. Like that's
Yeah.
really what I'm really enjoying about it. It's like as of now, there's been no rewards. I'm not done with anything. You know, like maybe that'll
Right.
change once something's out. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll fall in love with it and end up just writing tons of nonsense for the next 5, 10 years of my life. Maybe I'll, you know, who knows?
Mhm.
Either way though, I've really enjoyed the process. So yeah,
Mhm. I think you've already
that's
won then. I think that's already a win. I think you could already check win. I found something I enjoy doing. That's a win. And
yeah,
then the cherry on top is if it becomes something real, you know, it becomes
yeah,
something tangible or financially rewarding. Then
yeah.
it's like, that's the cherry on top. But I just like making the cake, you
Oh
know?
yeah, exactly. You know, like if you, yeah, like hobbyists that are like, oh well, I enjoyed wielding axes, so now I actually build axe sculptures, and it's my entire hobby, and I build my entire life foundation off of the income from the, you know, like that kind of stuff is very prevalent now. Like
100%.
this is a very rewarding time to be creative,
Yes.
because with a picture, you know, with an email account, you can get that information out there and people can see your work and people can be inspired by it and get out, you know, like it's a very creative, that's why technology advances so quickly. The better communication between people is,
Yeah.
you know, in the last I don't know, 150 years, you know, you have these nations, you know, like early 1900s, you know, people are still riding horses and traveling hard, like maybe a train, you know, like they're dedicating months of their lives to even go visit people, you know, like, um,
And now we get mad if our plane has to make one stop before our destination.
yeah, now we're like, oh, fuck, adds a half hour to the process, you know, like,
We're so
but
spoiled.
and we went from like, life is fucking hard to survive. Hopefully we'll have something to eat. Maybe it's a balanced nutrition. Maybe, you know, maybe if
Yeah.
I, you know, no way. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm
The
with you.
better
I'm
the
with you.
communication has become, the creation of the telephone, creation of
The
email,
more available people's creations are to the masses.
to the masses, the faster things snowball. And it's like,
Yeah.
so like people who are putting content out into the web, like,
Mm-hmm.
yay for you. Is it
Mm-hmm.
trash? Maybe. Is it
Some.
great? Maybe. We'll
Right.
see. But you are adding to, I want to say the word zeitgeist, but I don't know if I'm using that right.
Mm-hmm.
But just like the cloud of imagination for
Yeah.
humanity to play in. So just
Yeah.
keep putting content, you know, like
Yeah.
keep going. Cause like that's how we get closer to technology in the arm. You know,
Yeah.
like you know, like that's
It is.
get those ideas up there, inspire
Right.
somebody.
And the thing is like, it's all subjective. Like, I could be like, this, so I could look at somebody's content and be like, that's complete garbage. And somebody else would look at it and be like, I'll watch them forever. This is amazing. It's all
Uh-huh.
subjective. Art is
Uh-huh.
subjective. You know, that's why people always talk about the pair of glasses that was like on the floor in the art gallery, and it was just like, oh my gosh. Some people were like, that's stupid. Someone just set a pair of glasses on the floor, and other people were like, that's amazing. Like the creativity and the art, you know, or like the banana taped to a wall in an art exhibit. People are like, that's a banana, and other people are like, no, it's not. That is a piece, you know. And so it's all subjective, anyways. So
Oh, for
like you
sure.
said,
For
put
sure.
it
It's
out,
like
see what happens.
it's like okay, the story of Icarus flying too close to the sun and falling into his death. You know, the mythology, Greek, I think it's Greek, maybe Roman, I don't know.
It
One of
all
those
bleeds
Latin
together for me.
culture mythologies.
Yeah.
Fuck, I got distracted.
Just put it out there. That's my whole point, is just put it
Oh
out
yeah,
there, and it's
Icarus.
subjective. Let them decide.
Some people heard that story or were like, fuck, he went somewhere he shouldn't have gone and he died. Other person heard that story, went, holy shit, he flew. Let's try and fly. Now we have airplanes.
Right.
You know, like I don't know
Right.
if that's accurate, but it's like it's the
that
perspective
idea.
of some, you know, like just get that story out there because
Yeah.
eventually someone might be inspired by it. And
Yeah. And you don't know.
now we fly across the planet. Now we are capable of global pandemics, people. You know, we
have
are
facilitated
shipping
our
that
own
thing
demise.
around the world as fast as we can. Like,
go.
the downside of technology.
Sure, there's always a
Before
negative.
it was
Any
all like,
tool.
don't fucking go to that island; they're all infected. You know, like now it's like, oh shit,
We're all infected because we're all the island now. Now that one island is everything. Yeah, exactly.
Globalization is so important for technology, for sure. When you can use resources from around the world to further technology, when we have like some point in the future, a global economy, like global type of money, like we're getting there with Bitcoin. We're getting closer.
And COVID has sped that up immensely. The talk of globalization as far as economics and currency, that's like at the forefront of every tech article and every article I'm reading right now. Everything is talking about globalization.
Oh, for sure. And people are like, Bitcoin's just a fad. It's going away. No, it's global currency. Like
absolutely not.
The beginning of this kind of stuff, Maybe
China's already rolling out their own digital currency. Exactly. Bitcoin may not be the thing.
The sooner that happens, the better.
I agree. Again, it's just like anything. Any tool can be used incorrectly, right? Like a hammer is amazing because it helps us build infrastructure and homes. But if you hit someone with it, that's bad. It's always the person using the tool, whether it's a phone or a gun or a hammer or Bitcoin. It's how you use it. It's not the tool itself. The tool itself is it doesn't breathe. It's inanimate, right? Like it's the person that uses the tool. And so you can't be like, well, we shouldn't do that because bad people will do bad things with it. Bad people will do bad things with everything. Yeah. And good people will do good things with everything too. You can't stop that. You can't just stop technology because you're like, well, bad things could happen. Of course they could. Like people have been trampled by horses. Should we not ride horses? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I get it, but I also don't get it. We have to continue furthering. We're humans. We're innovators by nature.
The major problem really, when I was younger, my sister had a Barbie doll toy. It's called a Rub-a-Dub doll. It was like a little Barbie that not Barbie, I guess. It was like a little toy that had a floaty device, and she would float in the pool in the bathtub with you as you took your bath. It was a little toy for girls. And on the bottom of the device, it said this is not a life-saving device.
Right. Don't
try to use this to save someone's life. That's because one fucking guy,
right.
And now there's this insane whole side of this innocent toy thing. So I don't.
Sure. No, that's the same thing I'm saying. Is everybody? There will always be someone that misuses the tool.
Yeah.
But you can't just not make the tool because one guy's going to do something stupid.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's life. That's life. We know people are going to do dumb stuff. Sorry. But like with Bitcoin, that's the thing. I'm invested heavily into crypto. Not just Bitcoin, other cryptos. And the thing is Bitcoin may not be the one.
I'm invested in the idea. I haven't put any money into it.
That's fair.
You gotta have money to invest money.
That's fair. But this is my thought and this is what I tell anybody that wants to argue with me about, well, Bitcoin is just a fad. I go, first of all, two things. A, people said that about the internet. So good luck to you, Joe, because people said the internet was a fad, and now look at us now.
Joe, that idiot.
And then also, Joe, here's the thing. Even if Bitcoin isn't the reigning currency that comes out, this is just a person I'm making up.
It's a placeholder.
Placeholder. Whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Chainlink or whatever the digital currency that wins and becomes the global one, I'm just saying digital currency is going to be the thing. Mm-hmm. It does. And if you don't think so, you're just uneducated.
I use an app to manage my bank account. I use an app to manage my bank account. I haven't been into my bank in a year. No, that's not true. I refinanced my car in November, December.
Mm-hmm. But at what point does paper become obsolete? Pretty soon.
Just give me a little thing on my arm.
Right
here.
Right. And then you can use you can trade, buy everything.
For sure.
And and you go to Walmart, you just scan your arm and it takes $37 out of your crypto account. That's all. You don't have to have paper.
For the most part, you can do it on this, but this way you do school is this way.
Right. But we already do use our phones. I pay for more things through my phone than I ever do with paper. Ever.
Right.
Amazon. I barely use cash. Yeah, I don't use cash.
And right now, internet-based businesses must be killing it. They
are. They said Amazon's up I don't know. I think it's several hundred-fold or 10x or something like that.
Steve Bezos, that dude.
Jeff Bezos, but
is it Jeff Bezos?
There's
got to be a rich guy named Steve.
Steve Jobs.
Another rich guy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I knew what you were saying. I just had to give you a hard time. But it is true. We're there. We're on the brink of a globalized economy where it's not even. We're headed towards a place where America doesn't exist. New Zealand doesn't exist. It's all just the world, and we all will name it something different. You know,
No.
Pangea 2.0.
Names aren't going away.
You don't think so?
No. What'll end up happening is
Or
nations
territories.
will operate as like companies. You know, almost like it would be like the president of the United States, not Trump. Just, you know,
right.
Like an actual, like legit, like not him. It would be like him going to a meeting, a UN meeting, and everybody deciding like, okay, well, we need resources. All right, well, we have them. We can give them to you. Like, it would be more of like a UN-run government where the U.S. actually does answer to that government.
That's a good point.
And it would be like the U.S. would be like a territory, and not as like its own independent nation. So we would have to give up unilateral independence, and we'd all have to join like a government police force, a worldwide police force of some kind, something to enforce, or just get rid of currency. You know, let it follow the money. Just okay, we are creating a currency. Bring in your resources, trade it for the credits in this currency. This is how the world works now. You know, like whoever controls that central currency as a government would be the government organization of the world for sure. But like,
so China,
I assume it would work something like Congress. You know, like, oh yeah, the U.S. sent their representative to sit down and talk it over with Canada. You know, like and it would be like Congress, where everybody's just like sitting together and be a room of 200 people, like they're nations, you know. Everybody's treated the same, everybody has the same laws. For that to happen, we need to do something about distance. Maybe teleport technology, that'd be pretty sweet.
That would be really cool.
You know, like that'd be pretty sweet. Basically where it'd be like trains and subways could in an hour get you to Tokyo, in an hour get you to Europe, you know, like some kind of transport situation where distance is not the limiting factor anymore. That's the only way I see that happening.
Well, like I was saying, China is already rolling out their own beta test of their own digital currency as a national currency, and they're beating us to it. I was reading an article about the other day that America's rushing right now because they're going, oh crap, like they might be the first ones to have their own national digital currency, and if they win that game, we no longer are number one. We become number two, or wherever we fall in the pecking order. You know,
that could happen.
Yeah. To think that America is just going to forever be the number one, big boss, daddy, superpower of the universe, that's not going to happen. We're not going to stay on top forever. Again, we talked about this earlier. No empire, every empire in history has fallen at some point. Not to say that we would just not exist, but we would not be the number one dude. We wouldn't be top dog.
No. We
would have to humble ourselves.
You know, like, here's something, like, America's always going on like, oh, the 1%. Oh, the 1%. This may be my uninformed decision. This is, allegedly, I'm saying this, I guess. Whatever. Allegedly. However you want to say this. All of America is the 1% of the world. Like, you know, like not just, like, America doesn't just have its 1%. All of America is the 1%.
That's fact. That's not, I think that's very
And there are other nations joining us, you know, like the I would guess like the major economical powers, political powers are, you know, like England and France. And I say France because, like, I would say all of the major big boys are like the ones who all have nuclear technology. I think there's like 11 or 13 of them now. There's like 5 confirmed, 6 believed, like, and North Korea is like trying to get on that list real hard. And I think
try to hop on the train.
They did. And Pakistan, that's part of the problem we are having with Pakistan, is we're like, stop developing nuclear weapons. And they're like, well, no, we need this stuff to survive, so we're going to develop nuclear weapons so we can get this stuff. And we're like, no, stop this. And then, you know, like, but then at the same time, Trump said some stupid shit, pulled us out of that. That's a whole other issue. I'm not getting into this.
But we can't go too political.
No, we can't go too hard on this. I forgot where we were going with this.
But it's still talking on the currency thing, I think.
Oh,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
the globalization of everything.
You know what? Like, maybe they will be. Maybe everybody will hop on their ball. And you know what? Maybe they'll have a big say in everything going on. But, like, America's going to have its say. Like, don't act like just because we're not the first that we're not going to have our say. You know, like, USSR and United States, they both made nuclear weapons. You know, like, around the same time. Now there's some other people who have their say in that scenario, you know, like there's other people with nuclear weapons. Like we just said this, like, don't act like America is not going to be in the forerunners. We may not be first. It's not like the Olympics where like
we'll still be in the top 5, right?
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
We just may not be number 1 anymore.
I think you made a really good point. And I think
not because of potential.
Sure.
Not because of potential. It's just that, like, if we're talking about the gathering of information, if we're talking about everything coming together, like with the internet stuff, we also have to talk about the manpower involved in these things too. China has more manpower, lots more manpower.
That's just a fact. Yeah,
that's just, you know, like they have more body count. Deal with it.
Which
America
by
is
default,
like 3rd in the world. We're already losing on that front, and we have serious problems. Well, they have like 5 times more people than us. Yeah. You know, like if they're not number 1, they're failing horribly. Right. You know, like, so maybe their drive is a little bit different than ours, you know?
Right.
We're pissed about people coming into the nation and they're just like, fucking leave our nation. Like, you know, there's so many of us. So,
I think, like, you made a good point.
The maritime Silk Road?
Huh.
No? You guys should look into this. You should look into this.
Yeah.
China is offering to build ports in poor countries throughout the Indian Ocean.
Really?
With a leasing option, because they know, like, they're coming into a place and being like, hey, we'll build this port. You can pay us back in 5 years. This company goes, let's do it. Or this government says, let's do it. 5 years later, can't pay you back. China goes, we know. Here is how we're going to pay it back. 99-year lease.
Same situation we were talking about with the organs and the repo man type scenario.
So
same scenario, but
China is opening up harbors for Chinese freight and flow all throughout Indian Ocean, all the way up through to the Mediterranean. All, like, they're just opening up all these ports left and right to facilitate their trade. So cryptocurrency is going to be even more important for them, because now they can go in and slowly integrate their cryptocurrency into all these other nations.
Into every nation they hit.
China, India, all these, you know, all these, like Arabia, Pakistan, like all this stuff, all the way up through the bottom half of your, I don't know the name of the continents. Northern
Asia?
Part of the Indian Ocean, through all the Polynesia, all that stuff, you know. Their cryptocurrency is going to have a lot of people buying in. Why? Because a lot of their goods are moving through that area.
And they need the goods coming out of China. China's exports are incredible, insane, the amount of stuff they export. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and
they're just a big manufacturing factory with 1 billion people.
Yeah. Well, you know, and we could do that. We could go tear up an entire state and turn it into a factory of some kind. You know, like, we have the land to do that. Nobody's doing it. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
But, you know, like America, we buy shit. We don't sell a whole lot to the world. We buy from the world.
We're consumers.
So, yeah, we're consumers. So it's like, so of course, if we are not the ones, if we can't force people to buy into our currency because nobody's buying from us. You know, but if China's selling their shit across the world and they're getting all these other countries involved with these harbors, they're building the maritime laws to, you know, up in the north, through all look into it, guys. It's crazy.
I will.
You should. Like, they're well on their way. They're well on their way to dominating at least a third of the world.
And things will play out as they may. That's how life works.
Because, like we said earlier too, India ain't doing a whole lot. You never hear anything about that.
We talked about that.
1.3 billion people, but, like, I don't know anything going on in India. Like, maybe that's just like my blind. Maybe media is not covering this. Maybe they're not putting media out. I don't know what's going on.
But they're not a top player. They're not
doing a whole lot.
Right.
You know?
They're obviously doing stuff, right?
Or
whatever.
If they are,
But they're not on our radar as like, okay, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia,
as
America.
average Joe in America, as the average Joe in America, I have no fucking clue that you are.
Right. You're not thinking about India.
Are contributing or doing anything. As far as I'm aware, you're just.
And that's no knock to India. Good for them. I'm sure they're trucking along and doing their thing.
I don't hear about them in world news.
Right. They just don't. They're not a global player as far as like dominating superpowers.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Does India have nuclear weapons? I don't think so. Maybe.
No idea.
Maybe they do.
I would speculate not, but maybe.
How could they not?
I don't know. There's a lot of places that don't. And I think it comes down to a lot of times priorities. Like, we prioritized the arms race because it was a race, like.
Yeah, we had someone to compete against.
But that might not be on their radar because they're also an impoverished nation by a large percentage. There's a lot of poverty in India. So they might not be worried about that. They might be worried more about food and more basic type stuff. You know what I'm saying?
England really fucked them. The British really fucked them.
Sorry to anybody that's from India that's listening.
Yeah, and people who are British people who are just like owning places and doing terrible things. Like, did you know more people died in India during World War II than died during like World War II?
No.
Yeah. Through like rampant famines because England was pulling food and resources for like the war and shit.
I guess, the British did take over. Oh, you're right.
Like all they had to lose was a couple million, and they've already beat the numbers of all the soldiers involved and shit. Like,
there's so many things.
Look in the history, guys.
Yeah, right. There's so many things in history that if you start researching, you go, oh wait, I never learned that. Oh, I didn't learn that either. Oh, I definitely didn't learn that.
Yeah. Oh, nobody talked about what was going on in this third of the world. Yeah.
We've been given a very streamlined
our Western
history.
Western history.
Western history.
Yeah.
It's very convoluted and sketchy at times because you're like, well, that's it. That's how everything went. Like,
everything's divided left and right.
Yeah.
Everything in America is left and right.
It's sad. It's a weird time.
Even history.
Yeah, Western history. Like, we just leave everything else out.
Everything in the East didn't happen. Jesus didn't go there, so it didn't happen.
Right.
Too many of them for us to argue with. We're going to ignore them.
There you go. Well, I got to get back to a million things I have to do. But thanks for coming on. Do you have any final thoughts? Do you want to? Yeah, bro, we've been on for 2 hours.
Oh, my God. I forgot we were recording.
See, that's how it goes. That's why I love it. I knew you'd be fine after your initial little. Oops,
you're gone.
Lost you. Do you have any final words, any final thoughts, any like inspirational quotes you want to give us?
Mm-mm.
No. Good.
I didn't think about
any stuff
like that.
We went deep. We went into a lot of stuff. See how natural that was?
People. Embrace technology. Just worry about the ethics all you want, but still embrace technology. Like,
we're innovators. Humans are always going to innovate.
It's just like with all these protests. People are like, "Oh, there's rioting and looting," but it's like, yeah, but there's also like far more just peaceful protests.
Yeah,
rioting and looting isn't everywhere. And you know what? Like, so my brother lives down in Arizona, and he said that there was a local mall that got broken into and looted, right? And say, like, apparently, like, all the people the police caught that were part of the looting didn't come from that community. They were people that came from out of city and were like, look, there's rioting and looting during all the stress and all the police. Let's go break into shit and steal shit.
Yeah.
Like, the vast majority of all the people that they arrested weren't even from that area.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the story. People got to dig deeper into what's really happening. A lot of these people also are agent provocateurs that are being sent there intentionally to wreak havoc and get people riled up.
Well, and then there's just people who are bandwagoning. They're like, we can get some free shit.
No, like, I want free Nikes out of this store.
Profiting off of chaos. Like, stop.
Yeah.
You're making.
But that's happened throughout history. There are always people that see chaos and they take advantage of it for personal and collective gain, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's happened throughout history. We've done it here in America. We've taken advantage of all kinds of stuff for our own personal gain.
For sure. We are quite divided.
We're what?
We're quite divided.
Yeah.
Don't forget, people, that they're like, here's one thing about the pandemic and about the world that I think people forget, or maybe people in America forget, but you're like, oh, New Zealand hasn't had a case of coronavirus and blah, 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 blah. They're doing so well. Like, yeah, but like New Zealand's tiny, guys. It's like, come on, like the state of Massachusetts is bigger than New Zealand. Like, yeah. That's one of 50 of us. Like, stop,
again,
like,
people gotta think, do some research, think.
Like you are not just nothing. You're saying if you placed all of Europe inside America, there still might be more America than the continent of Europe. But Europe is like 10, 15, 20 different nations, you know, and they're all like, oh, this nation is safe and this nation is safe. Oh, but the nation of America, it's like, yeah, but America's like 50 fucking times the size of everything you guys got going on. Like, if one state had zero, if Rhode Island said they had no cases of coronavirus, that would be like Denmark being like, we're clean. You know, like, no, that's tiny. Like, it's a tiny place. Like,
right.
Don't forget, like, yes, things are bad in America. Yeah, people are not, we're very opinionated. We're not following the rules, maybe. But you know what? That's our pioneer attitude. But like, just don't forget that like we are so much larger, like land-wise, and like spread out like islands of humanity across the states of America. Like, we're so much larger than a lot of these other places that are like, we did it well, we're good. You know, like the terrible shit happening in Italy is like, yeah, but like New York had it bad too. You know, like, but nobody says, like, nobody's comparing those two things, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I just look at the scale of part of this panic too. It's just like, yeah, America's
right.
Just remember the sizes we're talking about here. Like,
that's the problem. People take outliers and isolated incidents and then apply it to a big on a big scale and go, see over there, like it worked out well, or like it worked out well right there. But again, that's an isolated incident. That's not the norm. So people want to take like isolated outlier incidents and make them the norm.
Yeah, it's a tiny portion of all the different states, all the sizes, all the, you know, 300 million people is a lot of people, you know, like islands of people. Like, we are the third largest country in the world. The only people beating us are India and China.
We're the third?
Yeah. With the largest population, but it's
population-wise?
Yeah, population-wise, but it's like, yeah, but it's like 50 states, guys. Like, come on, there's so many people.
A lot going on here.
Yeah, it's huge landmass. It's a third of a continent, you know, like, I have a world map here, I keep looking at it. That's all I have to say about that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I think that's good. I think that's good, just not just for the pandemic, but just like in general. Like, people need to realize, like, in life, using outlier incidences as the norm is just dangerous, because it's not reflective of what's actually happening, you know, on a grand scale. Any isolated incident is just that, an isolated incident or an outlying incident. It's not the norm. And it's dangerous to be like, well, you see, they went out and they didn't get COVID. That's just using those isolated incidences is dangerous for the masses. You know what I'm saying? You and I are on the same page.
Everyone arguing that they don't need a face mask.
Yeah, it's silly.
It's not how it works.
It's silly. Exactly. It's not you can't just
participate, it doesn't work.
Exactly. And that's where we're at, is if people would become united against whether it's racism or the masks, you know, as long as we're united against a common enemy, we're in a good place. When we become divided, that's when things get sketchy. Because then it's us versus each other versus the other common enemy, right? So then it's us versus ourselves versus COVID. Us versus ourselves versus ourselves with the race issue. Like, unity is what will bring change or will help COVID. Division will just set everything on fire and fan the flames of division. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Have amazing conversations, and I hope I can see you here soon. That'll be amazing. Yeah. We'll talk about that here in the coming days.
Yeah, heavily edit this thing.
I'll edit it. Don't worry.
Okay.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Enjoy your day. Stay safe.
Well, man. How do
mask up, baby.
Yeah, mask up.
Mask up. Last final words. Mask up.
Nothing.
Later, brother.